What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Landscape Accelerator Podcast. Today, I'm joined by my good friend Colby. Colby, go ahead, introduce yourself a little bit, man. Talk about who you are, what you do, where you're based, all that good stuff.
Hey guys, I'm Colby. I run Cajun Country Lawn Care. We're based out of Abbeville, Louisiana. We do landscaping, lawn care, tree trimming, gutter cleanup. We do a little bit of everything down here.
Right on, right on. So before we get started, bro, I gotta have you show everybody the shirt because that is the freshest outfit, uniform, whatever you want to call it, that I've seen probably ever, dude. So have them check it out. That's fresh. In case you wanted to know what some fresh landscaping attire looks like, there you go. It's got everything. That's fire. It looks like a sports team jersey, dude. That's sick. I love it.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So let's talk about everything related to landscaping, running your business, all that. We'll get into it. But before we do, tell us a little bit about like kind of what you were doing before you got into landscaping, any previous experience or like other jobs you might have had, some stuff that was just going on before, you started your business.
So right out of high school, I actually started working for another landscaper in our area. And then he got me into it and I learned the business and everything like that. And then worked for him for about 2 years and branched off on my own. And it's been going good ever since.
Right on. So before working for him, did you have any exposure to landscaping stuff, or was it kind of like everything that kind of soaked up working with him and your time spent there?
I had a few yards on my own before I started working with him, but he really taught me the business and really taught me how to get my quality up. So that really helped me to grow.
Right on. What would you say are some of the biggest things that you took away from working for another company, especially maybe like at some point during those 2 years, if you had kind of the idea of like, hey, I'm thinking about, going off on my own, doing my own thing. As you kind of had those thoughts developing, what are the things that you started to pay attention to more? Maybe some questions that you asked him that gave you some good insight as like, hey, that's a really valuable thing. I want to take that and implement it into my own business.
Taught me a lot about quoting, making sure that I was spot on with my quotes, because a lot of people get into this business starting out and they have no clue how to price correctly. And I think that's one of the biggest things is if your prices aren't right, you're hurting yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that helped a bunch.
Yeah. And, obviously hurting the entire landscaping, I guess you could call it scene as well. But, it doesn't take too many guys out there undervaluing the work that they're doing, which now affects everybody involved. And I know where you're at, we've had this conversation before, there's a lot of guys out there that are willing to, the chuck in the trucks that are
$20
Yep. Yep. So how do you process your quotes and how do you go about bidding your jobs the most effectively? Or like what's kind of your structure for that? How do you do your bidding?
I look at it as size and I kind of compare it to what the really professional guys in this area are charging. And I try to be around what they're at. So I try to just stay with the market. I don't want to be above the market. I don't want to be under the market. I want to be right there with the market,
Yeah. So charging competitive prices, but also trying to over deliver or at least have the same standards of quality at the very
Right.
So when you set foot on a new lawn or a new property, what are some of the first thoughts that you're having as far as, where that fits into your pricing structure? And some of like kind of the defaults in your head. You're like, hey, I know that this lawn is worth about this much. Is it by square foot, by the hour? Is it like kind of just a general estimate or like really like step by step? What's the process for kind of evaluating what that property is going to be worth?
So right now, I'm really only taking on lawns that are on my route. They have to be really close on the route. We're not looking to go too far off the route because we're trying to maintain our route density. Mm-hmm. So if it's on the route, first things first, I'm not looking for smaller yards. I'm looking for larger properties because we have big equipment. That's first thing. And then we're trying to see if it's going to be our ideal customer. We want clean yards, not too much stuff in the yards, not too many obstacles. Just trying to find simple, profitable yards is the goal. That's what we look for.
Okay. And then once you would determine that, okay, this client is on our route, probably a good fit as far as how they've already upkept their property and maybe also on a personal level as well. Is this someone that I want to do business with?
Right.
I tell that they're going to be a headache right away. Talking with the customer, kind of feeling out if you guys kind of vibe on that level as well. As far as like the pricing goes, what are you looking for to determine how much you think is fair to charge for that particular property?
So basically, any obstacles in the yard is what I like to go off of. How much weed eating are we going to do? Is it going to require a lot of weed spraying? Stuff like that. The landscaping, because I like to try to do it all. I don't want to just cut the lawn. I want to trim the trees. I want to maintain the flower beds. I want to spray the rocks in the flower beds. As much upselling as I can do on that property to make it as profitable as possible is what I'm looking for. And that all goes into the pricing.
Right. So what would you say are kind of like your standard like pricing in your head? And you don't have to like disclose exactly what you charge, whatever, but as far as like, hey, we've got this type of lawn that will do this or this type of service package and kind of it includes everything, like you said, the tree trimming, maintaining the beds, all of that. How do you kind of differentiate your service packages and like what you would tell the customer as far as, hey, if you want just a cut, we'll do this. If you want everything, it's this. How do you kind of set up your pricing structure?
So I have a minimum. So basically, if we're going to do anything in the flower beds, it's $200 minimum. That's pulling weeds, spraying, anything is $200 minimum.
Yep.
And then it's a $65 minimum on the lawn. And then tree trimming is a $300 minimum. So I kind of just base everything off my minimums and go up from there.
Yep. And I keep kind of like trying to dig a little deeper because this is probably one of the most common questions that I get either in Instagram DMs or, Facebook groups and stuff like that is guys like struggling to kind of come up with the formula for how to price these lawns. And honestly, when I was running my business, we did the same exact thing. We just had our minimum price and we kind of knew by looking at the property and the size of it and if we were going to do any additional work, kind of how much to charge. And some of it was based off of hourly rate, at least in the back of your head, as far as how you're coming up with those numbers. But also it is one of those things you just got to get like a feel for it, get an eyeball for it, and rinse, repeat, go through these properties over and over, some time and some experience. You kind of get a feel for the numbers and you just know what's right. But how would you explain that to someone that's maybe like just getting started so they can kind of have an idea how to crunch the numbers in their head and at least feel comfortable that they're at the very least not lowballing themselves?
And it also depends, I think, a lot on your overhead. If you got 3-4 guys in that truck with you, then you're going to have to price your stuff a little bit higher, to be profitable. But if you're just a solo guy out there and you can get a few yards on the same street, have really good route density, you can be a little cheaper than what I might be on a couple yards, stuff like that. So you got to know your numbers. That's the biggest thing. You got to know what it's going to take every day, how much money you have to spend out your pocket for you to make that money back. That's the biggest thing. And that goes a big, big, big deal into your pricing, I think.
100%. So what are some of the things that you keep track of as far as number crunching? What are some of the things that you look for within your own business to keep track of that overhead, to know your running costs, all of that stuff? How do you kind of go about coming up with that formula for your business in particular? Like, what are some of the different like inputs and outputs that you look for as far as coming up with that?
So basically what I'm looking at is fuel. I factor in fuel, labor, and then breakdowns. Because if you're running lawnmowers, especially zero turns, they will break and it's costly to keep them going. So you have to factor all that in. Insurance, workman's comp, all that goes into the price.
100%. I think the biggest thing you said there, workman's comp, insurance, two things that depending on what kind of operation, no one thinks about that. And also the equipment downtime. If you've got a lot of lawns on your route and one of your machines go down and you don't have either backup equipment or maybe a second crew that, hey, this week, these guys are in trouble with this machine. We need you to come, pick up this extra lawn or two here to kind of, make everything still work. I think the downtime is definitely something that people don't factor in.
Right. And how good your dealer support is too, because when those machines break, you need to be able to drop that machine off at a dealer and have it back in 2-3 days max. You need to be there's no, especially this year with as much as it's raining, you only have so many windows to get in and get the work done. So you gotta be constantly rolling. When we break one machine, we drop it off. I come to the shop, pick up another machine, and we're right back on it.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you did to kind of build that relationship with the dealership as our maintenance or repair guys, just to kind of be like, hey, I run a lawn care.
Man. You need to get with one dealer that's close to your house, and you need to do all your business with that one guy. Don't go do it with anyone else. Do everything with him. It doesn't matter the brand of the machine. If it's a commercial mower, there's not much difference nowadays. You just need to deal with that one guy, stay loyal, make friends with him. And that way, when you drop your machine off there, he can bump you up above all the residential mowers that are there, and you get your stuff back.
Yeah. I was going to say, is that something you also want to kind of talk with them about? It's like, hey, man, I've got this business. Obviously, I'd like to keep working with you. Long term, there's obviously benefits for both of us here. I'm going to keep doing business with you, but right. My whole livelihood, my team's livelihood kind of depends on us getting these machines turned around as far as the maintenance goes. So it's like, hey man, I'm running a commercial operation here. I know you got a lot of residential stuff too, but if there's anything we can do to just, move up a little bit, yep, we got to make that happen. So
right, that's key, man. It's key.
100%. So doubling back just a little bit, the workman's comp and the insurance. I know that for both of us that maybe have a little bit of experience, that's like, yeah, of course, duh, you need that. But for the guys that are like starting from zero, just getting started, when do you feel like that's something that's necessary? And then also, how do you kind of go about setting those two things up? We can talk about them individually too. So if you want to talk about like insurance first, then we'll hit on the workman's comp after.
Well, I wouldn't cut the first lawn, honestly, without insurance. It's worth it, because that day comes when you break a $3,000 window, you're going to be wishing that you had that insurance there. Everything else, if it's just a small little window, you pay for it out of pocket. But it's just something that at least at the end of the day, if you screw up, it's there to protect you. And that's the biggest thing. That's how I look at it. And then the workman's comp, once you get your first employee, and I wouldn't say you necessarily need it if you're doing residential, but when you get commercial sites, all my commercial sites require that I have it. And it's just one of those things. If you want to get into the commercial side of this business, you're going to have to get workman's comp.
Absolutely. When it comes to the insurance side of things, have you ever had to claim a damage or something like that? And if so, what's that kind of process look like?
Knock on wood, we have not had to make any claims. Thank God, crossing my fingers that we never have to. Yep. But if it would, so all my insurance is through a local agency in my town. So I would just give them a call, take pictures of the damages, send that forward, send them that way, and then get a quote from either a window repair guy, and then send them that quote over, and then it would be taken care of. But more or less than not, it's more, if you break anything, I would say under even 1,000, it's not worth sending it to the insurance.
Right. You don't want your rates to go up. You don't want to have any claims on there if you don't have to.
But you have that insurance for the peace of mind. That's the only reason why. And when you try to get commercial sites, they're going to require you have something.
Yep. Yeah, definitely 110% on the commercial side. Some residential people might ask you for it too. It's just good to have, generally speaking. Like, you don't want to be going in without it. So 100% worth setting up either way. What about the workman's comp side of things? Where do you go to get that set up?
So basically I did it through my insurance as well. So I kind of have it all packaged into one price every month. So it's kind of simple for me that way. I'm not too familiar on the workman's comp. I got lucky that they kind of had that with it. So it helped out a bunch to have it all with one person.
Right on. Do you do anything for like theft or equipment damages as well?
Right. So I have that included on the policy. It covers us for like breaking windows, stuff like that, damage to buildings, cars, and then theft. And then it also has a little bit of bodily injury on that too. So like if somebody was walking by and we were weed eating and they got smoked with the rock, it would cover them.
Yeah. Can't be out here smoking pedestrians uninsured. That's a bad move.
Right.
Yeah,
Correct.
100%. Yeah, that's something that I think maybe some guys don't think about as much too is, you want to have obviously your general liability, which is kind of everything we just talked about, hitting people, bodily damage, breaking, windows or property damage, stuff like that. But then also, auto insurance for the vehicles itself, same thing. If your machines go down, that's obviously a big issue. A bigger issue, your truck goes down, something happens to the truck, an employee, God forbid, gets into an accident, major or minor, like that's a big deal too. Obviously, your whole operation is shut down at that point. If you lose a vehicle, that's a little
Right.
more complicated to figure out than just drop the mower off at the repair guy. So, including things like the theft and the auto insurance too, I think is something that might not be top of mind all the time for people, but definitely something to consider and add on
Right.
to whatever policy and stuff that you've got going on. For sure. That's awesome, dude. I'm glad we got to kind of go deep on that because that's something a lot of questions just got answered that I get asked all the time. So I'm definitely going to be referencing this section of the podcast for a lot of people for that. That was awesome. Thank you. Um, so like what got you into landscaping in the first place? I know you said you had a little bit of experience beforehand, kind of was working with this other guy for a couple years. What kind of made you see that as a good opportunity or something you wanted to get into?
So here in Louisiana, a lot of guys, if they're not going the college route, they're going to go to the offshore route and they're going to work in the oil and gas industry. And I
Yeah.
just couldn't see myself having a job where I'm going for 2-3 weeks at a time, not home. I like being home at night. And it's nice to have a job that I can work throughout the day and still be able to manage the household. So
Mhm.
that's why I chose it. It was a good route for me. I saw the money in it. My teachers in high school said you can't make money in high school. And then my first year cutting grass, I made their salary. And I said, there's something wrong here.
Yeah. Maybe they weren't telling the truth. Maybe there was something they were leaving out.
Yep, no doubt.
There you go. That's awesome, man. So when did you start your landscaping business or like kind of get into, like you said, high school, cutting grass on the side, doing that kind of thing? Is that kind of where it all started?
Right, right. Around 2017, I think my junior year in high school is when I really started taking on a few yards. And then I think I had 20 yards. I would cut them on the weekends when we were off. And then I would work with that guy throughout the week just to get more experience.
Yep. Yep. Right on. So when it came to getting your first couple clients, how did that come about? How'd you lock down your first, couple yards?
So honestly, if you go work with someone for a few years and bust your butt and show that you really want to do this business, more times than not, they're not going to just be like kick you off. They're going to actually give you a few accounts to get you started, send stuff your way. And that's what happened. I got a few accounts from the guy I was working for, and then it just took off from there.
Right on. So yeah, I think that's really big too. One thing that I've been preaching a lot recently is the importance of networking. And some people see other landscaping outfits as competitors, or maybe even previous employers as competitors, and that's just absolutely not the case. Like you said, even if they're a bigger, more established company, chances are there's definitely estimates, there's definitely clients that are calling for services that they're turning away for one reason or another. And obviously, if you've worked for them, gain some trust with them, they know that you're, not a bad fit for sending work to. Obviously, their name is kind of a little involved there too. They don't want to, send someone that called them. They don't want to refer them to some guy that's going to do a hack job. So, definitely maintaining a good relationship with some of the other companies that, even though they do the same thing in your area, can definitely, 100% benefit your business as well. And, I can speak from experience here too. In the beginning, there was a couple jobs that we would get where we weren't necessarily 100% sure on if we could do it or not, or didn't have the experience, or maybe it was a little bit above the level of some of the other stuff that we had been doing. So, sometimes we had to call for help too and be like, hey, could you guys maybe, teach us how to do this, or have a couple guys come over and, or they got equipment that we don't have, and, just a bunch of, it can go both ways. So definitely building up some kind of relationship with, all the other guys that are in your area can 100% be helpful, not only for you, but for them too. It goes both ways. Scratch your back, I'll scratch yours type of deal.
Right, right. You can never look at any landscaper around you as competition or enemy, because enemy will be the first person that will be there to help you more than someone that's your friend, to be honest with you. It's
Yeah.
just how it works.
Yeah. 100%. So if you think back to like the first year starting your business, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced during that period of time?
I think just, you know, getting accounts. I think had to hustle a lot harder than I do now, because I didn't have a website set up, didn't have really a social media presence. So it was a lot of on the ground work to get the money rolling in. So a lot of door hangers, a lot of talking to friends and family, and just networking as much as possible to grow.
Right. So if you compare that to now, which is how many years have you been in business for?
So 2019, so 5 years now.
5 years. So if you compare the kind of the struggles and like what life looked like and what the business looked like in year one to now going on like year 5, 6, what are some of the differences as far as the challenges you're facing now? Maybe some of the higher level stuff that since your business has evolved a bit, what are some of the problems you're dealing with today?
Just I feel like, so when I started out, all my equipment was brand new, and now I'm still running the same equipment, maintaining it. So a lot more breakdowns on equipment, just trying to cycle in new equipment, but still trying to get the life out of the older stuff. So we still more breakdowns, stuff like that. And then employee problems, trying to retain employees is a big problem in this industry. That's
100%.
the other issue. I was solo back then. Now I'm running 2, 3 guys with me. So it's definitely hard to keep a good guy around right now in this economy too.
Right. Absolutely. So when it comes to the employee side of thing, like what are some maybe tips, tricks, advice, anything that you would offer to people that, are struggling with that same thing where it's like, hey man, when you find that good guy, what are some things that you can
Treat
do?
them right. Don't treat them as a friend. Just and take care of them. That's the main thing. If you want a good guy that's going to stay around, you got to take care of them. That's how I look at it. Because where I worked before, I was treated horrible, and I felt like quitting every single day. But if you have a good environment, them guys will want to stick around, especially if you're not making them work harder, and what you're telling them is to make their job easier, not harder.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, the landscaping field, the trades in general, like it's laborious work. It's hard. It's hot outside. I mean, you're
Right.
down in Louisiana. I'm in Florida right now. The weather
Same
maybe
thing.
a little bit different, but same thing pretty much. And it's like, yeah, it's hard to be out there in the heat, cutting grass every day, weed whacking every
Right.
day. It's a lot. So, like you said, the little things that you can do to make their life a little bit easier, or at least keep the energy high, keep the morale high, and, make them feel like at the very least they're understood, appreciated, heard. And, it's not like they're just showing up working for the man. It's like, hey, we're going to go, Colby's here. He's keeping everybody amped up. We're having a good time, at least trying our best to get by and also have a good time doing it. So,
Right.
yeah, I think that's key for sure. When it comes to the equipment side of things, what are some of the most common issues that you're running into as far as breakdowns or like maintenance related stuff?
A lot of spindles. There's a lot of trees in the yards I cut, and every now and then we just slip up and then smoke a tree stump, and then there you go. That's a spindle. That's $200-300 repair right there. And then a lot of belt issues.
Mm.
A lot of strain, especially like this year. Every yard we cut's almost soaking wet from all the rain we've having. So all the drive belts get all that tension on them, and then we pop drive belts right and left.
Right. So is there some preemptive stuff like you guys carry extra belts on hand? Maybe you like show some of the guys, hey, if you're ever out in the field, and you got to switch the belt, or any like on-site stuff that you can manage yourself, you guys kind of try to prepare for that as best possible?
And I really don't have time for downtime, so I just go drop it off. It's cheaper. I figured it's cheaper for me to just drop it off at the dealer and then pick up another machine and get right back rolling than it is to take the time and try to fix it in field, because it seems like you never have the right parts on you.
Yeah. Definitely run into that a couple times where it's like doing something on the job in the middle
Right.
of it.
It
It's
took
like,
longer than it would have took just to drop it off and go grab another machine.
yeah, and you're kind of embarrassed. You feel like you look
Right.
dumb out here fixing your machine, and like you said, you
In
never
the
have the
middle of a
tools. It's
nice
just,
customer's yard.
yep, yeah, it's kind of just maybe not the best look, and also definitely makes it a little more frustrating than it needs to be
Right.
sometimes for
And then
sure.
your guys are just standing there, not really doing anything. It's just not profitable. It's
Yep,
more
still,
profitable to bring it back.
yep, still on the clock, watching you struggle. So
Yep.
definitely, yeah,
Been there a lot of times, man.
100%. So as far as cycling out old and new equipment, though, obviously, if you get a high quality like commercial mower, the lifespan is, thousands of hours if you take care of them, do it right. What are some of the things that you feel like are red flags, warning signs, like, hey, maybe I should just cycle this equipment out for some new stuff because either financially it doesn't make sense anymore, or just to try and avoid some of that downtime, it makes more sense to maybe get a new machine, but just have kind of the old ones at the shop, at the garage as backups. And like, kind of, what's your thought process on that? And how do you kind of keep tabs and know when it's the right time to maybe upgrade or get some new stuff, cycle some fresh blood into the equipment?
So the guys that are the biggest around in my area, they have about 40 machines. And what he tells me is best, and I agree with him on this, is he runs them to about 1,000, 1,200 hours. He
Yep.
gets them about right there. That's about half life. And
Yep.
then he sells them. And then he just rinses and repeats. And he finds that it keeps them from having so many breakdowns. And then he's always rolling with fresh equipment. So that's kind of what I'm getting at doing right now. And that just, I feel like I'm having way less breakdowns from doing that.
Yeah, 100% agree. The 1,200 hour is kind of the sweet spot.
Right.
100%. I've bought in mowers that were like right around there, probably from companies that were doing the
You
same
get
thing.
about 800 and then it's
And
breakdown
it's
heaven.
Yeah, and it starts causing a lot of issues. Like, it made it through. Honestly, you're pretty much dead on. It was like we bought it at the beginning of the season, 1,200 hours. By the time we got to like fall cleanups, bro, that thing was having all kinds of issues. And it was probably around the same, about another 800 or so hours on it. It's just like absolutely clapped. Things are blowing on it left and right. And
Right.
yeah, you'll see plenty of mowers on Facebook Marketplace for sale, trade-ins, whatever, that are probably right around that same amount. So I think that's pretty common as far as keeping track of, like you said, that's about half life. So, around that time is when things usually start to happen. So
Right.
100%. So if you could go back to like 5 years ago, Colby, and have a conversation with him and say, hey, you're going to start this business. You should really start thinking about, or you might want to pay attention to, or I want you to know about this, this, and this. Like, what would you say to that older version of yourself as far as some things to look out for based on what's coming down the pipe?
Learn the red flags of customers from the as soon as possible, and it will
Mm.
save you a lot of time and headache if you can pick out these customers on which ones are going to be good paying customers that'll pay on time versus the customer that's always late. You're always chasing down your money, because there's nothing worse than having a customer that you have to chase your money down for.
Yeah.
I would put it like that.
So what are some of those red flags that you look for in customers?
When they name the price and tell you what they were paying the last guy that's sick or can't show up anymore, like, no, they're going to name your price.
Yeah.
Customer that needed it yesterday, that's like right now, right now, right now, major red flag.
Mm.
If you know what I'm worth, you're going to wait for me to get there.
Yeah.
That's
100%.
how I look at it.
Yeah. Any other ones?
There's a bunch, dude.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's just I've run through them all, man, and it brings back so many bad memories of all the people I've had to deal with doing that.
All right, perfect. Perfect lineup for the next question then. What's your worst like Karen customer story?
Oh, where's Karen customer story? Man, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I really don't have. I've been lucky that I've winged a lot of them out, so I really don't have too many. The worst one I know for a fact is that this lady had a broken window on her house, and I never really even saw it. And she tried to blame it on me, and I know well that I never broke that window. And that was a big argument with that lady about that window.
Yeah.
And I ended up paying for it just to make her stop.
Damn.
Because it was relentless.
Yeah. That's crazy. Wow. So as far as dealing with those customers, how do you, let's say you had a good customer, right? And they start slowly showing signs of, hey, this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a headache. What are some things that you do as far as like letting them down easy? When do you make the decision that like, hey, I need to fire this customer?
So a lot of these customers, man, the thing about the red flag customers is in the end, they really fire themselves at a certain point, because most of them just wind up broke and they can't afford you anymore. So they wing themselves out over the long run. If I have to get rid of one, and the best way is just to say that you got more work than you can handle and you can't get to them, and their yard's just not what you're looking to do anymore. You've grown the business and now you're scaling into other things. That's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah. Or like raise your price.
Right. And then every year, I think everybody needs to raise their prices 5-10% on every customer you have, and just keep focusing on trying to be as profitable as possible.
Absolutely.
Don't raise your prices right now in the middle of the summer, but at the beginning of the year, in February, before you really start mowing, raise the prices. And then some of those customers, especially bad ones, are going to get out right then and there.
Yeah. Save yourself the trouble ahead of time.
Right.
As far as like raising prices, stuff like that, middle of season versus end of season, do you do any like contracts, or when you bring on a new customer, do you have like a service agreement or something that you sign with both parties to kind of like lock in your services and your rates and stuff like that for the season? Or kind of how do you structure all that stuff?
So all my commercials are on 12-month contract. And then residential people, we really don't do any contracts on our residentials. We do it on a per cut basis. They know how many times we're going to try to get out there. Because in the wintertime, I'm really slammed with the hunting club that I run. So I'm not really focused on grass as much in the wintertime. I maintain my commercials, and then my residentials, I cut them once a month normally. So that's how I kind of structure it. But there's some people that have everything on 12-month contract, but that's good for people that don't have winter income. If you have a winter income, you don't need everything on a 12-month contract. Because in the summertime, on those contracts, you're really not making that much money on them. You make money on contracts when you're not really going. That's when the contract pays the best,
Absolutely. Speaking of like payment and stuff like that, a second ago, we talked about, people that are delinquent on payments, or, they're paying late all the time. What are some things that you do to make sure that you collect the payment that you deserve for services? And do you do any like online billing or card on file? Do you still collect cash and checks, or kind of how do you collect payment from customers and try to make that as streamlined and easy as possible for you and for them?
So I try to invoice as much as I can online and then get them to pay it that way. And I find that's because cash and checks, trying to keep track of all that is a nightmare. When you have 80 people that would be trying to give you cash and check, that's a lot of text messages and way more communication than I'm already need to be doing.
Right.
So I try to just have it all monthly invoiced. I bill at the 15th of the month, and then I bill at the 30th of the month. So it kind of helps with my cash flow. So I always have money coming in throughout the month.
Right. So like bi-monthly billing. And then what do you do as far as sending that out? Use like a software, QuickBooks, Job, or something like that?
I use Invoice Home is what I use. And I think it's like a $10 a month subscription. And it has all my customers programmed in. So it's simple.
Nice. I never heard of that one. I'll have to check it out. Sounds good though. Right on. So what are your favorite and least favorite parts of running a business?
My favorite part is when you can have some really good weeks and nothing breaks and the weather's cooperating. Least favorite part down here is fighting Mother Nature, man. because
Mm.
Louisiana, it rains. Like we're going to be in a drought and we're not getting rain, or it's going to rain its butt off. And that's normally how it is every year. We get 50 to 60 inches of rain a year. So it's a lot of wear and tear on the equipment, a lot of days that you're sitting at home. You know, you always feeling like you're playing catch up over here.
Yeah. You love the rain because you need it, but also it creates a lot of problems for you, scheduling and all that stuff. It's like
Right.
the fine balance of nature, and, landscaping work definitely hangs in the balance of it, where it's like, you're kind of at the whims of whatever's going on with the environment and stuff like that. Can make things a little tricky here and there.
Right.
If I could snap my fingers and solve one problem in your business right now, what would it be?
Oh man. Right now it'd be getting more new leads, man. New leads would be it's just our economy's so horrible right now. And it's tough getting in high ticket landscaping jobs. That's really what project based work. That's what I want right now. We're good on lawns, but those projects, man, that's just money that goes in your pocket. And
Yeah.
it's really nice to do something other than just mow lawns all the time, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to go a little deeper on this too. I know I told you about this. We talked with Megan a while ago. She's in Lafayette, kind of close to where you're at. Pretty much had the same thing to say where, around 70, 80%, I don't want to quote her exactly, but a very, very high percentage of her revenue for this season was recurring work, older customers, and
Right.
kind
Same
of,
here.
yeah, struggling necessarily to get new ones. And depending on geographically where people are at, a lot of similar stories are kind of across the board this year. So how do you feel like, not only the United States economy, but also locally, how that affects, not only the growth of your business and the landscaping in general, but also, that ties into a lot of other things like how much you can afford to charge, how much you can pay employees. So for people that are like maybe outside of Louisiana and don't have any kind of frame of reference, what are some of those bigger factors like that kind of affect the local economy, the landscaping economy, and stuff like that? And how's that affecting your business?
Really the job market, man, there's a lot of people around here are unemployed right now, struggling to find work. It's helped me because I can keep guys around right now because they're struggling to find work elsewhere.
Mm.
But a lot of small businesses in our area, especially Lafayette, like restaurants, dude, they're struggling. Like they're closed this past month. I think 20 something restaurants closed just in Lafayette.
Wow.
It's like small restaurants are getting killed right now. Small businesses too. It's just people don't have money right now. The cost of living has basically doubled in the past 4 years. So it's just put a strain on everybody. And when you think about it, lawn care and landscaping, it's not something that someone necessarily has to have. Like if they got the wheel and a push mower, they can get out there and do it,
Yeah.
and save that money. So it's really a luxury business to have a lawn care and landscaping service. So when the economy's hurting, people don't have that extra money to spend on us. So really just got to keen into our good customers that we know will be there and just keep going with that recurring work and kind of just wait it out. It'll get better, it always does, but that's part of being in a business. You're going to have highs and you're going to have lows,
Mm.
Right
Absolutely.
now it's just a low time.
Yep. So with all that being said, do you feel like landscaping as like a business model is recession proof?
No, not at all. Lawn care is recession proof. I
Mm.
would not, all these guys that get on here and say, yeah, we just do landscaping. I just don't see how you have to have that recurring revenue. You have to have that guarantee every month that you can pay your bills. That's the thing. Now, when the economy's good, yeah, you can kill it just on project-based work, no doubt. But you still gotta have that recurring revenue coming in.
Yeah, I always kind of favored the side of having both, where it's
Right.
like
That's how I am.
yeah, you can at least depend on that stability. And yes, like is lawn care the most profitable service? Absolutely
No,
not.
but it pays your bills. That's
Right.
what counts. And pays your employees, keeps the lights on, keeps the business running. But the project based work, that's where you put the money in your pocket, you know. That's just
Absolutely.
That's just how it is.
Yeah.
You
And
gotta survive.
yeah, and there's definitely ways where you can take the project-based work and turn it into some kind of recurring revenue, but it's
Right.
definitely not going to be monthly. Like you can go like pressure wash the pavers or like trim and prune and remulch the plants
Right.
once
But
or
it's
twice
not
a
gonna
year.
be work every week. You know,
Yeah.
you might get some landscape and maintenance, but that might be once a month. Trim the bushes, spray the beds. That's once a month. That's not how do you keep 4 or 5 guys employed? You know how much surplus of work you have compared to having, 100 something lawns that you're going every week. And every week this money's coming in guaranteed.
Yeah. And I really love the idea too of being able to acquire a customer and have them for a very, very long time, or
Right.
have like the lifetime value of a lawn care customer. I mean, I can see it from both sides where it's like, okay, if you do like a $10,000 landscape install, right?
Right.
That's an awesome project. You just made 10 grand, or maybe not made, but revenue
Well, you're
generated,
gonna have one every week. Probably
top
not.
line. Yeah, it looks great on the numbers perspective. And yes, to make 10K off of a lawn care client might take like 5, 6, 7 years, but it's still like the value is still there. It's just a matter of how long you're going to be in the game. And
Right.
some of it is like it might be like a marketing issue, but also with the economy, with things the way it is, it's like the market for landscaping projects, regardless of where you are, is going to be smaller, right? Like not everybody is going to be looking for those big backyard, redesigns and stuff like that, but everybody has a lawn. So, it kind of just comes down to, you can spend, a couple hundred, couple $1,000 marketing wise to acquire one of those bigger projects, or you can spend 40, 50, $60, get a couple lawn care clients, and that's going to be money that comes in every single month. It's just easier to stack that recurring revenue sometimes. And obviously, me and you are both totally in agreement on that, where it's like you still want the landscaping stuff, but I've always really liked the stability and also the long-term value of,
Right.
having that recurring, mowing money coming in as well. It
Right.
definitely getting started too. Yes, there's equipment. You need a truck, a trailer, mowers, weed eaters, blowers, all that stuff. Um, but as far as like the barrier to entry, mowing a lawn is not necessarily rocket science. A little bit of experience, someone that knows what they're doing that can teach you kind of the lay of the land and show you the ropes. You can get proficient at least, maybe not top quality, but you can at least cut a lawn, make some good stripes, and not fuck something up if you spend a couple weeks, a month, whatever, on the mower, getting used to it, figuring it out.
Right.
Laying pavers, planting trees, doing all that other bigger stuff. Like that's something that takes a very long time to become kind of a master of the craft at. A little bit harder to train employees on. Definitely, if you're going to be hiring talent, people that already know what they're doing, you're going to be paying more for them than you would for like a lawn care guy. So it really is, kind of a balance that can be had. But ultimately for me, like just personal opinion, I know there's plenty of people out there, in the lawn care landscaping world on the internet, whatever, that definitely preach hardcore one side or the other.
Yeah. And I totally disagree with that.
Yeah,
Completely disagree. There's
yeah,
a guy on TikTok that's all he preaches. He says, get rid of all your lawns. And I'm like, how can you do that in this economy right now? And then he has like 10 guys that work for him, but he is in a very well, populated area, a lot of rich people. So he has that going for him. Down here, we have a few areas where it's like that, but it's not everywhere.
mhm,
So it's
yeah.
almost impossible to just do that.
Yeah. And even in those, more affluent areas, it's like, what happens when everybody has a paver patio? What happens when everybody's, backyard looks great? Like,
Right.
there's never going to be an end to it. But for me, it's just like, okay,
It's always a chase. It's a way bigger chase than just chasing lawns. You have to be selling. And if you're not selling, how are you paying your guys?
yeah,
That's the thing.
absolutely. 100%. So what do you think are some of the biggest changes that you've noticed in the landscaping industry since you started till now?
A lot. So when the economy's good, there's not really that many guys that are doing it. You know, it's when the economy's bad, there's a lot of guys that try to start doing it to basically get side money after work. And then their prices are so cheap, it starts hurting us guys, you know, the professionals that have been in it, you know, that's really something I've noticed.
What about changes in like equipment or, ways that you can kind of structure your business or like software systems, anything like that?
And biggest thing I've noticed is definitely like, I wish I would have done a lot more SEO stuff with you way early on, knew about you, stuff like that, because I would be even bigger now. That's having a social media presence and internet presence is huge if you really want to get somewhere in this business.
Right. Know? Yeah, it's definitely something that I think maybe guys are not aware of how impactful it can be. I think that now, because of TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, a lot of people making content, stuff like that, generally speaking, people are a little bit more aware that like, hey, if my Google business profile or my website is, ranking number one, then obviously there's going to be a lot of benefits from that. Obviously, there's going to be people that are searching for it. It's a good way to acquire new customers, clients, also good for branding. Showing up at the top of Google is obviously the best, but at least on that first page, it makes you stand out a little bit more as a company too, makes you look more valid, more legitimate, and definitely adds a little bit of authority and professionalism there as well. But there's still a large crowd, and I've talked to a lot of them that are, adamant on the fact that a website's useless and word of mouth is the only way to grow my business. And I've been doing this for so long and I don't need it, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, like
when the leads stop flowing in, you're going to be wishing you had that website there.
Yeah. And that's the problem is when it's too late, it's too late.
It's too late. The best time to build a website was 6 months ago if you don't have one.
Absolutely. And all of the stuff within Google, the digital realm, you can call it, that stuff does take a decent amount of time, especially if you have other competitors that are also doing it as well.
Right.
It all plays a factor into it where it's like, they've been doing this for months, years, however long. So you're kind of playing catch up with them too. So, it's definitely something where, like you said.
And then the guys that just say no to it, they might be the lucky sucker that doesn't have anybody on Google. And like me, look at me. I didn't have anybody competing with me on Google, basically. In 1 year, I was top number one on the website and on the business listing. You know, it's not worth saying no to it if you don't even know yet. At least do your research and see who you're competing with.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for the guys that are out there that are maybe in like a smaller population area, some are rural where it's like, dude, there's not a lot of competition.
Right.
So that's
how it was to me.
Yeah. So it's like, it's very, very easy for you to get out there, establish some kind of online presence, and not only have it out there and have it start attracting people, but also to rank it really well too, because there's just not a lot of other people. And if there are, then they definitely aren't thinking about it and don't necessarily know what they're doing in that whole space. So it's very, very easy to kind of establish yourself as, online, at least, that number one business for that area. 100%. I think it's slept on, and it is tricky because some of the stuff is, a little bit expensive and it does take a little bit of time, and everybody wants quick. I need results. I need leads yesterday. And some of it comes out. Yeah, it's an investment.
It's like investing in a stock. Same thing. If you're patient enough, you're going to see a return. It's just how long are you willing to be patient to see a return?
Right. And you can't expect results yesterday.
Right. Tomorrow. It can't. Yeah. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. It's kind of unfortunate. There's a lot of guys that will contact me or someone else or whatever, kind of out of desperation, where it's like the pipeline's dry, the phone's not ringing. Oh shit, I need work. And it's like, what can you do for me tomorrow? And it's like, dude,
nothing. Like, 6 months from now, I can have something coming to you. But right now, it's just, you should have done this 6 months ago.
Yeah. So I can set you up to absolutely crush it 6 months from now or the start of next season, whatever. But there's not a whole lot that can be done.
It's up to you at that point. It's up to them to make it happen.
Right.
Network harder.
Absolutely. So what are some other things while we're on the marketing topic? What are some other stuff that you guys do? I know you've talked a lot about like yard signs, stuff like that. Also want to touch on the the issue you were having where you didn't have like a license or certification or something, so they made you pull your yard signs. I've never heard of anyone else having that issue, so definitely want to hear a little bit more about that for guys that are tuning in.
So I was putting yard signs on street corners, and my city has an ordinance that you're not allowed to put any yard signs on street corners or right of ways. So the city, I was putting yard signs, and they were going right behind me and ripping them up. So I'm only allowed basically to have them in my customer's yard off the right of ways. So that was a fight.
That was the stipulation of it. I thought it was something about like having a landscape license or like contractor's license or something like that. That wasn't the issue?
No, that was to get listed on the Google.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Google
The
service, I think.
Yeah, the local service ads.
Yeah,
Right.
local service ads, right.
Yeah,
Right.
the Google guaranteed, for those of you guys that don't know what it is, the green check mark, the Google guaranteed ads, typically they're higher up on the page as far as Google ads go. Those ones you do need a business license, obviously some kind of LLC or formal business formation or proof of establishment. And then also as a personal whatever, you need to pass a background check. So those ones are a little bit tricky. Couple of hoops you got to jump through for those, but can be done. Obviously guarantee that you have those three things kind of in place already. So what does your sales process look like? Obviously between like lawn care and maybe some of those higher ticket landscape installs or projects, it might look a little bit different, but what are some of the things that you're doing when you're on those property walks? What are some of the questions you're asking clients? How are you kind of, digging a little deeper, figuring out what it is they actually want done? And then also the process of, moving them towards closing, cutting the check, signing the agreement and getting you on board to come deliver the service.
Man, it's a process. You got to fill the customer out. You got to kind of feel what you kind of can get an idea of what their budget's going to be when you show up, and just by looking at the house, and how they treat their yard to begin with, you can kind of tell if they're going to want to go all out or just go with a basic package. So I kind of just like on all my landscaping jobs, I kind of give them like three options. We can go with the best of the best. We can have a middle, and then we can have just a basic. So I try to give like three options, and then on the lawn mowing, the price is a price on the lawn mowing. You don't have options on that,
Right. What's maybe something that you would say to a customer that is on the fence of whether or not they want to do it? Like, sell this project. If I was the client or customer that's, yeah, I'm interested. Maybe the price is right. Maybe it's not. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, what would you say to kind of, for someone that's teetering on the fence, to kind of, push them over and go with getting the
I would see what they really want, just keep probing and finding out what do they want at the end. What result are they looking for, and see how I can best solve their problem. At the end of the day, I'm trying to solve their problem. They reached out to me because I'm the expert. So I'm going to give them the best recommendations I possibly can, and then see how far they're willing to go with it,
Yep, absolutely. Asking questions, also kind of being there, like you said, as the authority figure. Like,
right,
hey, you asked me for my opinion. I'm more than willing to give it to you and kind of lay out some steps to move forward.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I'm going to ask questions because I'm here to help you. So I need to better understand, like you said,
understand the situation.
Yep. And what the end result that they're looking for is, and how can I best deliver what's in your brain, what you actually want,
right
here for you. For sure. What about the sales process when it comes to acquiring commercial accounts? Because that's a little bit different, something that's a little tricky. You can't necessarily market for it. Like, obviously you show up on Google, whatever, something like that. Commercial accounts, people that are property managed, whatever, they might be on Google looking for it. I've had it happen plenty of times, but how do you go about getting some of the commercial properties that you have, or like, who did you rub shoulders with? Who did you, know some connections that you had? How did you kind of step into that game? And what are some tips you'd give people that are looking to do more commercial work?
So commercial, man, it's not going to be them calling you. It's going to be, you have to be friends with somebody that's there. And you got to know someone to get into commercial. And then if you're lucky enough to find a commercial that's not looking for the cheapest guy, you got lucky, because 90% of them want the cheapest guy. It's the bottom of, they're going to cycle through guys every year, because once a guy that's doing it realizes he's losing his butt on it, he's gone. And then it just rinses and repeats to the next cheapest guy. So that's why commercial is really a fight. I'm lucky for the ones I have. And really the way I got them is from those guys that are coming hunting with me in the wintertime, and I ask them, hey, what you do for a living? And they say, yeah, we work here. I was like, hey, can you talk to them about me cutting the grass over there? You got to have a way to get in the door with them. That's the only way, because they're not going to call you. They're not going to Google. A few might, but not many.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of connections, networking. I know a guy who knows a guy who works there.
Right.
A lot of that stuff is really where those deals are done, for sure. As far as reaching out to them, is that something you've ever tried?
I have tried it. And like I said, 90%, you're going to do a lot of it. And 90% of them are going to, when you do give them a quote, they're going to turn it down because you were too high. They're going to want the cheapest guy, most of them.
Right. Still might be worth shooting the shot, though.
Oh, yeah. Shoot the shot for sure. Because really, at the end of the day, if you can find one or two, that's 20, you can say almost 10, 15, maybe 20 residential accounts in a month, on one account. But it's not as easy as getting a residential account, for sure.
Yep, absolutely. That's definitely another huge question that I get asked very frequently, is like, how do I get some of those commercial properties? And like we just talked about, the cold hard truth of it is, the best ones, at least the ones that are maybe, like you said, not looking for just the cheapest guy, the ones that you have some kind of relationship or some kind of in with, those are the ones that are the easiest to get and also kind of lock down long term.
Right.
I am planning on making a couple videos very shortly here as far as some other things that people can do. I also got an email template, like an outreach template that you can take, plug in your information, and send out to commercial buildings, realtors, stuff like that. And then also just another quick tip, like join Facebook groups. Like some of the guys that I know that are crushing it in landscape projects and also doing a lot of commercial work, they network with general contractors, home builders, people that are doing work at new properties that are just being developed, or other commercial buildings where maybe they're offering another service. They're doing the roofing, they're doing the exterior pressure washing, stuff like that. People that are already, doing services on those properties, you might be able to get in through them too and say, hey, they have that connection with the commercial account or property manager, whoever's in charge of, making that decision. And, having them maybe, hey, I know a lawn care guy, landscaping guy, if you guys are ever looking for someone. So there's a lot of things you can do with that. General contractors, new home builders, real estate agents is another good one. Property managers, those are the people that work with real estate agents where, they might be buying new homes, new properties, apartment complexes, stuff like that. They're not doing the lawn care themselves. They need people to take care of those. And a lot of times the property managers will handle a lot of the interior and exterior stuff, but the lawn care is something that they're pretty quick to outsource. So those are good people to know as well. Another thing I always recommend is, networking groups, Chamber of Commerce. That's an easy one, dude. Like, I don't know I'm sure you guys have one there too. Some of them, it's like per town. So if you're in Lafayette, Louisiana, there's probably a Lafayette Chamber of Commerce. But then a lot of times the communities or the towns that are around that, they'll have it'll be Lafayette area or Greater Lafayette Chamber of Commerce. So it's like, hey, if you're in Lafayette or around Lafayette, so you can join the one for your town and you can join the ones in the towns around you. Obviously, you want them to be in your service area, but it might be once a month, once every quarter, whatever. There's a meeting, a dinner, something like that. But you're literally sitting down and having a conversation and just meeting all of the other people that own businesses within your area, right?
Right.
So that's a great place to shake hands, rub shoulders, make some friends. All these other people own businesses, and people that own businesses know other people that own businesses. So that's a great way to kind of start getting yourself out there a little more, meet some people that maybe you didn't even know were, bigger players in your area, and kind of get your foot in the door that way too. I think that's super slept on.
Right. No doubt.
Yeah.
No.
So, what's some advice that you would say is invaluable as far as protecting yourself legally? And whether that be with contracts, LLCs, anything that kind of separates you from your business a little bit, and just make sure that you can sleep well at night knowing that, everything related to your business is taken care of.
And insurance, dude. Insurance and workman's comp is huge, man. Do you have that? You can sleep pretty well at night knowing that you're going to be okay, It's one of those things that I think you have to have, no matter if you're a solo guy or not. Just knowing that if you mess up, you'll be protected at the end of the day.
Right. Absolutely. What would you say is probably the best purchase that you've made that's benefited your business the most? Whether it be a piece of equipment, an employee, some other asset, whatever, for your business.
My truck, for sure.
The truck.
Having a Ford F-250 is, I think, having a diesel with that power, being the reliability, because the truck's the most important thing, man. Most guys only have one or two trucks. So when you're down a truck, that's a big deal. So I think you just have to have, when you go on the truck route, you need to have something reliable that's going to start and go every day,
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So I'm interested your opinion on this. How do you feel about electric equipment? How do you feel about the AI mowers, the ones that are like on remote controls or like mow the lawns themselves, stuff like that? How do you feel about all that? Horrible. You don't see any future in that at all?
Oh, there's going to be a huge future in that. There's no doubt, but I'm just not ready for it. And I think they're never going to have the power of a gas or diesel engine, and then who wants to sit there and charge batteries where, oh man, I forgot to charge my battery. What I'm going to do,
Yeah. Yeah. That's tough. I love the electric toys. I got the Suron, the e-bikes, and some of the golf carts and
right.
stuff like that. Those are fun. I love those. But when it comes to like the weed whackers, chainsaws, mowers, like you said, the charging of it, the battery life, all that stuff becomes kind of inconvenient. Also, right. How some of those things handle differences in like the weather, temperature,
right,
stuff like that, the rain even. It's like,
right.
Not sure how that all applies. And
you got to baby your equipment a whole lot more when you have electric stuff.
Yeah. And also it's like at the end of the day, like you said, oh, I forgot to charge my battery, or, oh, we've been out mowing for 6 hours and, the sun's about to go down, but we have a couple more accounts to cut, but the batteries are dead. Oh no. Like, what are we going to do?
Go home and charge the batteries. We'll pick back up tomorrow.
Yeah. Or just drive 5 minutes to the gas station, top up and keep rolling. Like,
right.
Yeah, definitely. I see the potential in it for sure. Maybe more so on the like robotic side of things, more so than like the electric stuff. But I think it's definitely going to take a little while to catch up and get better. And then also, I think there's a lot of human touch that can't necessarily be replicated when it comes to the mowing, especially like, not only when it comes to making nice stripes or like the quality of the cut itself and how it all looks, but there's a lot of other factors. Like, if you just program your machine to go out and cut the lawn, like it's not thinking about hills or wet spots or like turn marks. Like, how do you account for
They're
all
good for big properties that are wide open without many obstacles, stuff like that. But it's never going to have the quality in, nicer homes, stuff like that. It's never going to, a machine, robot, AI, whatever, will never be able to do exactly what a human can do, you know.
Yeah. There's just way too many.
There's too many variables that a machine you can't factor in, you know.
Mm.
It can't really tell if there's that one spot in the yard that know's wet, but it won't know, and it's gonna go right there through that spot and get stuck,
Yep.
you know.
And then what? Like,
And then what do you do there?
yeah, you got a machine.
Go get a machine that you drive and then hook up to that machine and yank it out.
Yeah. Or call your technical support guy and be like,
Hey,
hey,
I got it stuck. What do I do, man?
yeah. And they're not going to be able to help you. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's definitely interesting. It's definitely cool.
Yeah, no doubt.
Even just paying attention to it past like 2 or 3 years, there's been a lot of improvements, but
Right.
I think it's something
But
that's
it's still got 10, 15 years before it's ever going to get to anywhere that it's going to be used on a broad scale, for sure.
100%.
Now,
So,
I will say this. A lot of farmers around here have been using drones to start spraying their fields. And that's very interesting right there, seeing that, you know.
yep.
Because I could see that being used on commercial landscaping properties to spray like retention ponds, around ponds, stuff, hard to reach areas. That's pretty handy right there, you know?
Yeah. The drone thing is a whole rabbit hole. We could go down that if you want.
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw some really, really crazy videos. It's about like the war with Russia and Ukraine has a huge advantage. Maybe not in the grand scheme of things, but the way that they're using drones with like bombs and stuff on it, and just
Right.
the
Just
way that
finding a random soldier on the ground and just killing them with a drone. Like, Jesus.
insane,
Horrible, man. It's
fucking
sick.
crazy, dude. You got some kid that's just like in a bunker underground somewhere with like, VR goggles on, just fucking killing people left and right, dropping crazy shit. Crazy. It's like a video game, dude. It's nuts. But as far as the drone technology and the capacity for what those can do, obviously outside of like warfare, there's a lot of commercial applications for that too. So I think that'll be something that's really interesting to pay attention to.
Right.
Let me know if you want to, have a mastermind and figure out how we can make a fertilizing spraying drone or like a weed picking drone, something like that. We'll have to make some calls to investors and see if we can come up with something brilliant for that. I think there's got to be some use case for those that someone hasn't thought of yet. That'd be the next $1 million idea for sure. But yeah, those things are fucking cool, man.
Yeah.
100%. So dude, talk about the hunting club and stuff, because obviously landscaping during the season, the spring rush, even throughout the rest of the year, like your life is landscaping. It's 24/7, doesn't stop. And, all your extracurriculars and maybe some of your hobbies and stuff kind of, fall to the wayside, but always love hearing what other people are into. And I know you got the hunting club and stuff. So talk about that for a little bit. It's a pretty awesome winter gig.
So in the wintertime, I run a hunting club, and it's actually called Cajun Country Waterfowl. So I own Cajun Country Lawn Care and Cajun Country Waterfowl. So kind of got lucky with that, being able to use the same name for two different businesses, It's guided duck and goose hunt, so it's waterfowl. So basically people pay me to take them out hunting, and it gets me through. It runs perfectly, because right when the lawn care season is slowing down in November, hunting season's picking right back up. And I hunt until about March, into February, March. And that's right when lawn care is picking back up. So it keeps me going throughout the year, and I love to hunt. I've been doing it since I was a little kid, and I'm good at it. So it works out perfectly,
Yep. Absolutely. And another question that I get all the time is, what do I do in the winter? Like, snow plowing is the obvious answer.
But if you're in the South, you're going to have 2-3 months that it's slow. The best bet, if you don't have any winter income, you need to save it or have your stuff on contract where you're going to be getting that money coming in the wintertime.
Yep. Yeah. And there's a plenty of other, creative things that you can do.
Right.
Dumpster rental, Christmas lights,
right,
gutter cleaning, stuff like that. But, sometimes having something else too.
A lot of people ask me, they're like, so how do you retain your guys in the wintertime if work's so slow? And I tell them this, my guys always, I tell them, look, go work at FedEx, go work at UPS, go work at Amazon, go work at one of those big warehouse distributors for the wintertime, and then come back in the spring. Because so many guys try to keep, Mike Andy said this with Augusta Lawn Care. And he's right about this. It's not worth trying to make work in the wintertime just to be given all that profit to try to keep employees around. Just get them to go work somewhere else and pick them back up in the spring and keep it like that, because you're not going to be able, we don't have snow down here. So the months of December and January and February are slow, it's going to be hard to keep guys, busy.
Yeah. What you just said is perfect too. There's a lot of jobs like that, like UPS, FedEx, all those that they have a lot of seasonal opportunities where they only
and
need
it's around the
help.
holidays when we're slow, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, that's all major shipping times. And they're always looking for seasonal workers around those times. So it gets your employees work and then they're able to come back in the spring,
Yep. Yeah. And in the timing, the window of it works out good too, where it's like they don't feel like they have to go get another job and then leave that employer when it's time to come back. Like there's no hard feelings there.
No, I'm telling you to go do it. Like it's great,
Yeah. And for the other guys too, UPS, FedEx, whatever, like they only want people for that period of time. So it does work out pretty well for all parties involved in that regard for sure.
Right. No doubt.
Right on. So the tradition that I've started recently is I stole it from another podcast, being completely honest, but I've been asking at the very end, what's one question that you'd want me to ask the next person that comes on the podcast? So the one that I'm going to ask you from the previous episode was basically, what's one thing that you would change about yourself or maybe about your business? And just some of the context around that conversation was, your business is only going to function at the level that you rise to as an individual, right? Like a lot of us have personal problems that manifest into the business and become problems within the business as well. So like, what are some of the things like your mindset, your, personal, physical health, whatever, what are some things that you feel like, you would want to change as a business owner that you feel like would make your business better?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I know it's kind of like deep and personal, but we went down there in the last podcast. So I got to ask.
Man, I think for me to really be able to scale would be releasing control. I'm very OCD. When we leave a lawn, I'm there and they're perfect. I'm not going to lie to you. Our work is 100% customer guarantee every time. And I know if I got out the truck, my quality is not going to be the same because no one cares about your business as much as you do. You can't even expect them to. They're an employee. They're not the owner. They're not going to care the same. So releasing control, I think, is definitely one of my downfalls because I feel like if I was out there selling instead of being in the field, I could be making a lot more. But at the same time, releasing control, is definitely one of my struggles.
It's like it's
a two-way street.
Yeah, something that you got to get over for yourself. And you do have to be able to trust the guys. Right. And at the end of the day, like there's so many factors with that too, where it's like,
And I don't necessarily want to be that big because I've seen a lot of guys. Part of me wants to be like, oh, I want to be so big where all I'm doing is just managing this business. And then a part of me is like, man, when you get there, I talk to all these guys that do that. It's not that profitable. It's more headache. It's more stress. You think you want to get that big, but then you realize you make the same amount. And you're just not working in the business.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's something that's interesting to bring up too, where it's like, there might be a lot of guys out there that are younger or maybe just getting started. And you see a lot of it on there on TikTok, Instagram.
Right. These guys that are acting like they're so big, but if you really knew the full story, they're not.
Yeah. that part. And also it's like, not every business needs to be this like multi-million dollar landscaping company
Right,
started at 14 years old. It's like, bro, that's cool. It makes for a great video. Cool, like clickbait headline title, whatever. Like you said, behind the scenes, some of that maybe isn't all as, sunshine and rainbows as it seems. But also it's like be realistic with your goals and what you want out of life
right,
and for you as a person. Like you very well could take your lawn care business, landscaping business, whatever, to a comfortable level where it's generating enough money to feed you, feed your family, your goals are met, you're, still feeling ambitious and you like what you do, but you
right.
don't
That's
have to turn it into this huge thing either. Like it's very possible to
right.
enjoy both of those things for sure.
Because there's pros and cons of both of them. If you're gonna stay in the business and you're gonna be in the field, you're gonna be working. Your quality's gonna be great. You don't have to have so much trust in your employees not to screw everything up because you're there. But
Mm.
you release a $60,000 truck, $40,000 of mowing equipment. You got $100,000 of stuff rolling down the road. Like that's a lot of trust that's going into someone's hands, man.
Mm.
And it's tough. It's tough because if they screw that up, that was everything you just worked for, just went straight down in the ditch, basically.
Yep. Yeah. And there's a lot with, obviously you got to have a little bit of self accountability too, where it's like, I got to hire the right people. I got to
Right.
train them properly. So it's like, no matter what, you can always feel like it's your fault. But at the same time, it's like sometimes accidents and shit just happens. And yeah, it could have been you driving the truck too. But at the same
But you'll
time,
feel better about it if it was you instead of an
yeah,
employee, because
yeah,
you're always going to be thinking, I knew I shouldn't have trusted him. I knew I
yeah,
made the wrong decision. There's so
yeah.
many factors that go into it.
Yeah. And then the next bouncing back after that, the next time you're about to hand someone the keys, you're just
Yeah,
like,
you're,
oh
you're
my
just
God,
done.
bro. Like, please. Yeah.
It's
So,
a big step to take. And some guys shouldn't take it, and some guys should. It all depends on your area. I just don't think my area's big enough for me to get there. I just want to try to keep what I got, steady growing, keep a number that I like, and try to keep it as profitable as possible and make what makes me and my family comfortable. You know.
mhm. Yep. And that's totally cool. 100%. So, what's the question that you'd want me to ask the next person that comes on the podcast? And based off of the schedule, it's for tomorrow, I think, and it's going to be with a dude that does more like higher end installs, like pools, backyards, patios, stuff like that. Just for a little bit of context, if that changes your question at all, and it can be related to landscaping, to business, to personal stuff, whatever. It could be anything. So don't feel like there's any restraints on the question itself.
Interesting. And I would ask them what do you do when you're project based like that and work slows down? How do you retain your guys? Would be my
Mm,
question.
okay.
How do you keep guys going when work gets slow?
All right. Cool. I'll write that down and be sure to ask them that tomorrow for sure.
Sweet, man.
Right on.
It's
All right.
been a
Well,
blast, man.
what's that?
It's been a blast. I've enjoyed this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Thank you for taking some time out of your evening to pop on and chat with me. It's been awesome. A lot of really valuable advice, and I think that anybody that's watching this, whether they are just getting started or maybe a couple years deep in the game like yourself, could definitely take some stuff from this. So I'll make sure that I got your website, Facebook, social media, all that stuff. I'll have it linked below the video. But why don't you just tell people, where they can find you at?
So we're on Facebook, Google, and Instagram, and it's Cajun Country Lawn Care. And for hunting, if you're interested in doing a guided duck and goose hunt in South Louisiana, it's Cajun Country Waterfowl. We're on Google and Facebook there too. So there you go, man.
All right. Right on. Colby, been an absolute pleasure, man. Again, thank you for your time. And we'll talk soon, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man.
All right. Ciao.
Bye.